Hi all, it's Vanessa Love. All right, so today I'm going to talk about uh oh, being offended. All right. So, many years ago when I worked at the behavioral health hospital or facility, which now I call the mental hospital where I worked, um at one point, so I was very new to the field and I was very nervous and anxious and just all around a mess. My life was not, it was very stressful. It was not going very well. Um, and so, I have this job. They're making me work with teenagers, and like, I mean, I wish that what they would have done was like keep me with a bunch of adults, and then slowly get me into doing like one or two like groups of teenagers and kids, so that I got to like, you know, first of all work on my skills, and then get to a point where I felt more comfortable. And actually, I had to take a break from internship for a while, and I felt much better when I went back. I felt like the mental hospital was actually a very supportive place, whereas like my internship was just kind of like, well, why aren't you doing the right thing? Which is a weird, thing. Because you would expect it to kind of be opposite. Like, my internship is where I should have been like, oh, I don't know what I'm doing. And everyone would have been like, no, it's okay. Just calm down. Like, figure it out. This is good stuff if you want to help your clients, in the future. But that's not what happened. It was awful. Um, so, um, we had all these teenagers, and they, for me, were god awful. And that's part of the reason why they were there. Um, yeah, apparently you can go to a mental hospital if you're a god awful teen. No, I'm kidding. Like they had very serious issues, and I was not prepared very well for that as a clinician at the time. So um, I remember that they would push limits all the time, and that's teenagers anyway. And they would say like just these outrageous things and be like, no, but you have to be open minded about this. And like a lot of the stuff like was not okay, and they felt like they had no freedom of speech, which I'm like, everyone has freedom of speech, of course you all do. But like in a place like that, we have to make sure that everyone's safe. And so, I know that with adults, there had been times when someone would come in and, I'm going to do the trigger warning now. Like, if you're very sensitive, if you're, not in a great space, please don't continue watching this. So, assuming that you're doing fine mentally, um, I'll continue with my story. So, like, someone would come in and be like, I've been raped a couple of times, and just like casually, just like, hey, room, this is what happened to me. I'm a victim of incest, and just like go on details and details and details and take up the whole group. Well, after a while, I had gotten used to that. This is how certain people act in, like their first time in groups. And I also knew that um, when people start saying those type of things, that they're probably like reeling out of control, and if when they come back, that they'll probably feel embarrassed and ashamed and very closed off to group. So kind of I had seen it multiple times, and so I had stopped someone from talking about some of these very troubling and triggering things, without the consideration of everyone around them, right? I mean, everyone's in there for their own reasons. Now's not the time to, like walk into a group, hey, my name is, I'll make one up, Mary, and, this is all the stuff that happened to me, this terrible stuff. And I had stopped someone one time. All of the ladies got up out of the room and immediately went to the nurses and one of my one of my closer colleagues, and just complained about me. So I was like, all right, give it a few days. So after a few days, we were in a group, and this Mary person came in, and like they had been in group after group where she was doing this, and taking up the whole group, like in group dynamics, taking the group hostage. And like, sorry, that's really not a really great term. What do they call it? Monopolizing the whole group. which is not good for group therapy. Um, so, like, so here's Mary, and she's like going through her shit, and she's just like continuing like to, bombard people basically with this story. And so, Mary leaves the room, and all of the ladies who had, just a couple of days ago been like, how dare you? This is atrocious. I can't believe you would do that to anyone. Is like, I don't know why you didn't stop her. Well, I didn't stop her because you guys went to people and complained about me, so I didn't feel comfortable saying, hey, like, again, to Mary, I don't remember anyone's name, so I'm like, to Mary, out there somewhere, that, to just kind of like shut down. I know now how to kind of like manage with that better, but I mean, I was still learning, so, whatever I had come up with at that point was just kind of a trial. Not the greatest. So now back to these kids. So in this particular mental hospital, there was a lot of like taking away of people's, freedoms and choices and other things like that. And, some of that is for good reason. You cannot have, safety pins or scissors on these units. You can't have your belt. You can't take regular showers. Like, yes, these are all things to keep you safe. Not talking about certain things is to keep other people safe. But they felt like they just kept on saying this, like, and now, of course, I know what to say. But at the time, I was like, what do you mean you don't have any right of freedom of speech? So there was this one girl, and she was probably at like an 80, what is that called? Like scored an 80 on her like intelligence test. So she was a little bit lower, than like the average. And she would speak with a Chinese accent, and she did not have any idea why a white woman would feel very offended by this. And I don't like that I have to say, like, justify, like, why that using a Chinese accent on an American, like, in not an American word, an American English word, or sentence is racist. So I just was like, you're saying racist things. Could you, take a step away from group? And like, of course, everyone else was like, you don't give us the right to talk and all of these other things. And, I heard this for weeks on end. And finally I was just like, like I get, that you're saying this stuff, but like, I don't think that you would like if, we allowed people who had definitely opposing views to you, come in and talk about things. And they're like, no, of course. But, like, this was 10 years ago. And so now you have people who are like, no, you have to agree with us and give us the right to freedom of speech. And if you don't, then, like, you are, keeping us back and keeping us down. But at the same time, these people only want to hear, some of the people who are saying these things only want to hear the things that validate what they're talking about. And I mean, that in psychological terms, they want the confirmation bias. They want people to be like, yeah, you're right. And, there are plenty of times where on online forums and online arguments saying, is what you want to hear that you have researched this well and that you're right. And because when people are like pushing me sometimes, I'm just like, I kind of have other stuff to do. So how do I end this on a fair term? And I mean, I'm fair-minded. Like, I listen to people and I'm like, okay, yeah, I don't necessarily agree with that, but I can't entirely tell you why I don't, because I haven't, like, really picked that apart. And right now I don't really want to, and like, I get like pushed to a limit where I'm just like, do you want to hear that you're right? Fine, you're right. I'm going to go. And usually people don't want to hear that, but they do. It's a very interesting thing. The other thing is, oh my gosh, it went right out of my mind. Researched. Oh my gosh, let me stop this now.